Welcome into the Just Basketball Show for Tuesday, June 13th. And the Denver Nuggets are NBA champions. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. If you haven't already, please subscribe or follow us on your podcast platform of choice. 5-star reviews only. And remember to subscribe to the Just Basketball Fans YouTube channel. Got a ton of great content over there. And it's only going to get better as the NBA summer kicks off. But Brendon, the season is over. The Denver Nuggets have beat the Miami Heat. They win the series 4-1. Nikola Jokic is the Finals MVP, the lowest drafted player ever to win Finals MVP, and he's now a champion. This was not the prettiest game. This was not the prettiest series. But, Brendon, here's where I want to start. I told you a couple days ago when we were prepping for this that I had a Denver kind of rant in me if they won. And whether it was this or Game 6, here's just what I want to just clear. Just make very explicitly clear. People, I think, we're going to get some nonsense the next couple days about their path to get here and all this stuff. They beat Anthony Edwards. Look, I just want – there's nothing – they were just pretty dominant in the course of the West for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
Beat Anthony Edwards and the Wolves in round one pretty decisively. There's name players on that team. I'm going to look at the names of the players they beat. Name some dudes. They beat Cat. They beat Rudy Gobert in that series. They advance. Okay. They just keep churning and churning and churning throughout this playoff. When you get to the conference finals, they beat LeBron. They beat AD. They didn't have, easy paths here. They didn't have a path that was just like nobody's and historically bad teams or anything like that. They didn't have a stretch against Phoenix Suns. They played Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, two of the best players in the league, who had absolute flamethrower game start that series, and they beat them, and it didn't feel close at the end. And to get to the finals, they beat the team that was the boogeyman, the Grim Reaper of the Eastern Conference for the last, 2 months. And they won in 5 games.
Yeah.
They handled every best shot they got. This team is there's nothing you can do, Brendon, to take away from this title. This was the best team in the league this year. Nikola Jokic, I think, has the best player in the world belt right now. They're on top of the world. That's where this is at. If you say anything else, you're not you, but the pejorative you, everyone, you're just being an absolute hater for absolutely no reason.
Well said. I honestly am just thinking a lot about Nuggets fans. Nothing.
Very happy, very very happy for them.
Nothing like a first time championship. Nothing like to make it for the first time and then win it, and the amount that this fan base has had to go through and wait for is pretty awesome as well. This is a group where, for everything the way that it was headed, could have just never even gotten to this spot. Whether it was impatience by ownership or it was certain guys, if Michael Porter doesn't develop the right way, then his contract becomes a problem. And if they don't draft well, then the kind of weird years with the injuries catch up to them because their team gets expensive. There was all sort of ways that it could have gone wrong. And yet, Jokic and Murray are great enough, and the rest of the stuff went right. And guys like Aaron Gordon and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Bruce Brown get added along the way, and this is just a group that ends up being dominant. And I don't really think there's another way to look at it. I know that there will be people who tried to poke holes in it, but this was a team, Chris, with the best offensive rating among playoff teams outside of the 2 COVID years for the Jazz in NBA history. Those 2 years where Donovan Mitchell was just flamethrower and they had a bunch of 3-point shooting. Those 2 Jazz teams are higher. That's it. The Sacramento Kings had the best offense in the NBA in the regular season this year. The Nuggets in the playoffs were almost a point per 100 possessions better than them on offense. There's nothing to describe what they're doing besides dominance. And tonight it wasn't traditional sexy dominance, but I would look at 28, 16, and 4 on 12 of 16 shooting from Jokic in one of the ugliest basketball games of the playoffs to still do that, I think that is pretty dominant. And yeah, this team's legit. I don't think you can. It's unassailable. What they just did, they didn't even get to a game 7, and the only game 6 they got to, they smashed the Suns, and I watched it, and it was one of the ugliest closeout games of the entire postseason. Like, if this isn't being dominant, then like I don't really know what we're doing here.
Brendon, in Game 5, they beat the Heat at their own game. They went through the muck to clinch it, to clinch the title. If you look at the numbers from this game, and you just look at the physicality. There was a lot of slapping in this game. There was a lot of poking. There were a couple of times where I was like, wait, I was waiting for Bam and Jokic to have to get separated, just because like Bam is poking him and prodding him, and Jokic is not exactly one of those guys who is gonna be soft in when he gets poked like that. He's not gonna. You know what? Dillon Brooks said he pokes bears. Nikola Jokic is the bear who will eat you, right? I'm sure people saw
size. Grizzly bear, Nikola Jokic. It's kind of right there.
Did you see him hugging his massive brother with the neck tats after the game? I just will be thinking about. I
saw his brother in the shot when they were kind of showing the whole family toward the end when his brother started crying, and it was just a lot. The idea of a man that large shedding a tear is just like a galaxy upending moment in human history, but it happened tonight.
I mean, probably also happens when he watches like The Notebook or something. Honestly, maybe they're just big softies.
Serbian dubbed though,
Yeah, probably. But like the offensive rating for Denver in this game, 97.9. That's awful. Miami's was worse, 93.7. The Heat won in terms of turnover percentage, won the turnover battle, but the Nuggets hit the offensive glass. They produced just enough. Jokic was good enough in these spots, and they beat the Heat in the muck. They went into the muck, and they beat the Heat, where the Heat had to take this game. They survived the Jimmy run that was 11-3 Jimmy on his own run.
Yeah,
they survived that. They didn't blink. Other teams in these playoffs, the Bucks, the Celtics, have blinked when Jimmy has done that stuff to them.
Yeah, and
here they didn't. They survived. They're NBA champions.
I thought this series was cool that it didn't just always go to the 3-point winner. Mostly because most of the games, both teams shot like shit, but it's still nice that we didn't get an NBA Finals that was just like, oh yeah, Miami shot 60% from deep 4 times, and there's your NBA champion. Like I'm not saying if Miami had won the series, it's fine, but I was not liking that it might end up that way. The stat that defined this one to me was 19 fast break points for Denver and 60 points in the paint for Denver. And it was like, yes, it's ugly. They missed a bunch of free throws, Christian Brown, Jokic even. And they didn't make their threes like I just said. They turned the ball over 10 times in the first half, only 4 in the second half. But it was like, hey, when we're going to score, it's going to be in the paint. And we're going to hit the offensive glass, and we're going to pass the ball to Jokic every single time that he has a mismatch. And a lot of times when he doesn't, and Michael Porter Jr. is going to just attack the basket because nothing else is working. And yeah, I mean, being able to stoop to that level, I don't even mean that in terms of quality. I just mean to be able to play a game like that is not what we thought of heading into this finals even as a Nuggets type of game, was awesome. It was cool to see. I think these are the 2 most mentally tough teams in the league, and I think that's kind of what this postseason taught us. And so to be able to kind of stand up on the throne after that and say, hey, we were in a battle of mental and physical toughness, and we won. Forget anything else. You're the champion.
Michael Malone said after the game that they just don't want 1. He didn't quite go, not 1, not 2.
Yeah, he said we want more.
Not 3.
Yeah.
But I could believe, Brendon, this is a catalyst for the Nuggets. I could believe that this is the start of something for the Nuggets. I don't know if they're going to go on a dynasty run or anything like that. That is very bold to predict. But I think we see a team here that has Jokic, who's still in his prime, who has Murray, who I think is only going to get bolstered by this, who has a front office that is making moves to ensure future flexibility, that has MPJ locked up, that has Aaron Gordon for right now kind of locked up. That will have to figure out what to do with Bruce Brown, but you'd hope they could find a way to keep him. He would want to stay. The core of this team is not going to get broken up in a meaningful way, and with some smart draft picks, and just because they have Nikola freaking Jokic, they're going to be fine. And this is the kind of thing where you win a finals like this, you're mentally tougher than the other team, like you said. you kind of survive this and you get here. This feels like this won't be the last time we see the Denver Nuggets in high-stakes games. Will they win another title? I don't know. But do I think they have a really good chance to get back here? Yes, I do.
So you and I have been trying to get to some big picture stuff on the Nuggets all series, but we kept wanting to wait because we didn't want to jump the gun and everything else. I have a beef and a grudge and just like a deep anger toward Bill Simmons because he beat us to it. They did a lot of this stuff on their pod today in terms of...
Bill also drafted Darius Garland on his list of guys to be traded, and I had the same reaction Ryan Russillo had, which was... Like, are you high? Like, without saying, are you high? Bill, are you high? Were you still drunk from nephew Kyle's wedding? I think you might have been.
Yeah. But, so, let me just ask you the question that they kind of hit on, which is, if the Murray and Michael Porter Jr. injuries don't happen, and they come off of that 5-game loss in the Western Conference Finals, do you think 2023 could have been championship number 2 for the Nuggets, or even 3 for the Nuggets? Would we be talking about this as like the ascension, the Nuggets era in the NBA, rather than kind of these weird new finals appearances by different teams every season while the Nuggets were kind of biding their time and were debating and yelling about MVP and all this stuff? Do you think there's an alternate reality where it's actually just them for 3-4 years?
I think it's possible that they at the very least make another finals in that run, right? Like, what has happened here really, just when we look back at it, it feels almost delayed. The Murray stuff, the MPJ stuff, that all feels delayed. And obviously there were ifs there. MPJ is back. Like, back injuries are never something you can just bank on being okay. Murray, you had, I mean, the guy's whole thing, dating back to some of the really great Jackie McMullen stories on him, his mental toughness, his fortitude is always a core part of him, but it was like never a lock that he was going to get back here. But I think that felt like it delayed it.
I mean, as recently as like January, you and I were doing shows, we were like, knee soreness, he going to be all right? Like, is he fine?
Turns out he was fine, and I think he's only going to get better from here. The only part of it that I think like maybe crystallized here differently than those other seasons, Brendon, is the role player stuff. Christian Braun like had moments in the series and did things. He missed the free throws, but he had a very nice like up fake and draw a foul moment in this game. This game, by the way, would not have been as close as it was if Denver just like hit some damn free throws. Like, they put this game away like much earlier if they just like hit some free throws or one of the many threes that just like went in and out. Regardless.
Well, we know that Jimmy Butler only had like 2 minutes of scoring in him. So, yeah, I guess if you never give him that opportunity, there's probably not even a crunch time.
Yeah, you're getting like Zeke Naji and DeAndre Jordan not like in the middle of a game, which we don't even have to talk about because that was just a thing that happened and I just apparently hallucinated it. But like you got Bruce Brown, you got Christian Braun, you got KCP in the trade. Like the role player stuff, I think crystallized for them this year in a way it wasn't a year ago. Like Monty Morris was still on the team.
Wow,
a year ago,
just
right?
Complete stray. What did he do? You don't think he
Nothing.
had it in him? You don't think they
should
win
get
it
an
if
honor.
He's still on the team. Damn.
He should get an honorary championship ring.
He's
but,
what
like,
brought
they
them
went
KCP. I mean.
I know, but it's just like, but they got the wing. They got they got KCP, 2-time NBA champion, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Moving on from Monty Morris.
They got bigger, is what happened. And I have a piece on this coming out for Dime, hopefully tomorrow. Because this is their playoff rotation in 2020 when they played LeBron and AD in that championship Lakers team. So they had Murray and Jokic, the top 2 minutes getters, Jeremy Grant, Paul Millsap, Monte Morris, Gary Harris, Torrey Craig, Mason Plumlee. That's a deeper 9 than they have now. That's 9 guys who all could still play playoff minutes outside of Paul Millsap. They didn't have Aaron Gordon. That was the big thing. But they just have size at every position. And I feel like that's kind of been the learning process for their front office over time. I mean, they had Millsap. They had Yusuf Nurkic playing next to Joker at one point and all these different guys. But it was really, like you just said with KCP, it was like, we're going to need size everywhere because we have a ground-bound center And, we're going to need to own the boards. We're going to need to own the paint. We're going to need to just be a swarming defense, even if we're not an athletic defense. And that's where even somebody like Jeremy Grant, I don't think he would have fit on this team. It was such a big disappointment when he ended up leaving. But I think in the end, they didn't need a player like that. They got scoring down. You know what I mean? They needed physicality, size, and length, and they pretty much have it on every single player who plays for this team now. And that's, I feel like, the biggest kind of, if I'm just trying to take away why this year's team got it done, or if I'm another front office, what do I want to learn? It's that.
The other, I think, part of this that I think Brendon feels to me very special to this year is just, I think because they had different versions of the you fail in the playoffs and you come back journey, right? They didn't have this core hit a wall 2, 3, 4 times and then break through. They had Jokic kind of hit a wall last year, and you're banking on these guys that were not there but had been with you in the bubble and had big moments, in Murray's case specifically, then come back and then figure this all out, and then you come back. It just looks different than I think the historical kind of thing. I do also just want to note.
And then you just had 2 MVP seasons in the middle of that, which is just more insane.
Yeah,
and
just
confusing to the average fan, I think.
Yes. Here is Nikola Jokic's resume now. By the way, hit this. He's 28 years old, 5-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, All-Rookie team member, 2-time MVP, was the Western Conference Finals MVP this year, just won a title, and was the MVP of the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Brendon, do you know who
his
the
Conference Finals MVP trophy? The Magic Johnson.
No, I said Western Conference.
Oh, you did?
I said that.
I was just laughing at how silly of an award that is.
It's very silly, but I'm, rings culture and
he was the MVP
the other thing
for
about
the 4 games of that series. Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, look, they did just kind of dominate the Lakers. The other part about this is you look at Jokic and he just says we can all go home now. It is the exact opposite of the I don't know if you've my Instagram, Brendon, is a mix of a lot of NBA stuff, some golf stuff, and then Jack Grealish content. And the amount of Jack Grealish content I've gotten on my Instagram is and what he has partaken in the last couple of days since winning the Champions League is the exact opposite of what Nikola Jokic is going to, I think, do over the next 24 hours.
Yeah, Brooks Koepka, I think Jack Grealish and him are just kind of back and forth competing for the most inebriated man on earth for their respective celebrations. And Joker is can I have an orange juice or a Capri
Can I just have a
Sun?
water?
And,
can I get some Can I get some electrolytes? Nikola Jokic is not going to be on stage at the parade at 5 in the morning. A, still in his jersey, and B, not being I'm a turkey, and then have his teammates pour Grey Goose in his mouth as they're celebrating in the parade. That man is just gonna get home to Serbia and see the ponies.
You could tell all he wanted to
possible.
do was just
get
out
out
with his daughter
go home.
and his wife, right?
Yeah.
Even as it was all happening. But no, Jokic is actually the part of this that unassailable resume, as you just said. But I think that I pulled some numbers from his.
Wait, can I tell you one thing real quick
Yeah.
that I just looked up, and this is historically is gonna be very funny. Who won do you remember who won the Rookie of the Year in 2015-16?
Was that the year Ben Simmons won it?
No, it was Karl Anthony Towns. Okay. And Karl Anthony Towns, Brendon, was the 5th unanimous winner of the award.
We're gonna. I'm gonna jump ahead a couple days. We're gonna be talking about Cat on the next show we do. Scoring from Jokic. So I lean toward yes that this would have been the dominant Nuggets era, if not for those injuries. I actually do think that they probably get at least one, let's say one championship. But my only caveat would be I actually think that Jokic's maturation physically and his development as a scorer has really mattered. So his first MVP season, his at-the-rim frequency as a scorer was below 33%. So less than a third of his shots came at the basket, which makes sense because he just didn't really put in the effort to barrel his way inside. He didn't really try to score out of post-ups. It's not that he doesn't play inside. It's just he really wasn't trying to attack in that way. This year, it's over 44%. Almost half of his shots have come at the basket this season. We know he's efficient. That was never a difference. That hasn't changed. But this year, he's set or tied career highs in efficiency at the rim, efficiency from mid-range, and efficiency from deep. So he got even more efficient. He started attacking as a scorer on the interior, became unstoppable when he looked to score. I mean, he had a few shots at the end of this game where he was just destroying Caleb Martin. And that stuff in terms of mentality, in terms of touch, in terms of physicality as a scorer, I really don't think that was there. I do think that happened over time, and they needed every single ounce of it, especially against Miami, but even against the Lakers when he's, having to score against Anthony Davis, and he's having to, scored 53 against the Suns. Like that they don't get here without him doing that, and I don't know if he could have done that 3 years ago.
No, I don't think he could have, and I think it's a very subtle part of his game. It is not like the A1 lead part of his game that when we look back at like what has made him special these last couple of years, it is going to be the passing stuff. It's going to be the wizardry. It's going to be like you can make a compilation of passes he makes that didn't result in assists that I would probably watch for like 20 minutes. He had one in this game where anyone else it's like a hook shot from like 8 feet. And instead it was like a little pass into Bruce Brown who's like just darting in and he finds these little spaces. That is what like draws him to him. But he did the thing that you need to do to like win over like the weirdos who are obsessed with a certain archetype of player, which is like just be like the best playoff scorer on a team and like dominate the ball in a certain way. Like he's kind of done that now. Like there's not a part of his game, Brendon, that we can't pick at it anymore. Like, yes, like is he the best defender in the world? No, but like he's so good on offense, and he's
had that swipe against Gabe Vincent late in the game.
Had the swipe against Kleen Vincent, is competitive on defense, is smart on defense, and I think to his credit, the gas tank is just, like, it's there. Like, for a guy that size to have the gas tank he has to handle what he has done, that wasn't there a couple years ago either. Like, no. He is in phenomenal. This is a guy that he doesn't look like he's been, like, he's not going to be, like, dropping, like, Instagram ab routines anytime soon. But he's in phenomenal shape. The gas tank is there for Jokic, and that probably something different from a couple years ago as well. I would imagine if you asked him independently.
I mean, he just doesn't foul
Doncic,
either.
Take notes.
Yeah, right. He's shredded again. By the way, Luka is ripped.
Yeah. Is he hitting the hookah? Is like what's going on? Is it hookah Luka season?
Always, it always is. That doesn't
Good for
go
him.
away. No, but he never fouls either. And that's one of the things defensively. Like early in his career, I'm looking fouls per 100 possessions. His first 2 playoff runs, including that Lakers conference finals appearance, he fouled 5 times per 100 possessions. 2021 goes down, but last year, 5.8 in their 5-game series. 6 fouls per 100 possessions, basically. And then to this year, down to 4.5. And that's another really long playoff run where he really had to kind of prove that. And that doesn't include tonight, but still. That's been huge for him too. It's all those things, and I do think, like you're pointing out with the MVPs and the delayed kind of nature of this thing, like he was getting better, even if not everything else was. And honestly, like I don't know if you want to talk about these guys in depth or not, but Michael Porter Jr. was also getting better. I know he missed a lot of time himself, but he was playing a lot of it, and like they don't win this without his evolution from just being a shooter to being something more. And they don't win this without Aaron Gordon, I think, learning to play with Jokic and learning what his role needed to be on this team. So, yeah, they didn't have like those, we were just that close types of moments, but like they were there. And then they finally kind of struck when it all hit together. But I think next year they'll be right there again because this is not something that just falls apart. Like they're a unit, they play together and they're dominant.
Jokic, by the way, his turnover percentage, Brendon, went from 15.6% in the regular season to 11.9% in the playoffs, and that was on a 3% higher usage in the playoffs. Yeah, he's like almost 4% higher usage in the playoffs. That's absurd. The Aaron Gordon thing is a great shout because, lest we forget, before they get Aaron Gordon, they lose Jeremy Grant, who they'd given up a first-round pick for. And I think other small market teams like that could have been like a moment where you look back and say, oh, like they paid and it didn't work out and they couldn't replace him. They just went and got a guy who I think has bought into his role better than Jeremy Grant probably was ever willing to. I think is what we've kind of learned, right?
Jeremy Grant, who might be going back to the Pistons this offseason. Yeah.
Which okay, Jeremy,
get your bag,
whatever you want to. It's like James Harden, like Aldi James Harden energy going on there. Yeah, but like that's a little bit of Jeremy Grant, but whatever. They went and got a guy who was like bowling mismatches in the series and is playing really tough and is like ascended into like a perfect version of himself alongside Jokic. Like he is the quintessential example of you can make a lot of money, be really good, and win a lot of basketball games if you kind of find the right role for yourself. And obviously, not every team offers the infrastructure and the palette that Jokic does. They don't offer the canvas Jokic does.
No, but he could have
created
out,
find yourself.
Like you could still get here and be like, I mean, Bones Highland just did it, right? Like,
yeah, wonder what he's still thinking. But Bones absolutely is sitting at home if he's watching this game and is like, yeah, I probably, I should be taking these shots that Murray's taking.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Marion played with Steve Nash and got grumpy about not taking shots. Like, it's not just like this elixir that if you play with these guys, your career is solved. Right. So he deserves a ton of credit. But I mean, I hear you for sure. Like he found the right situation, but he also bought into it, and he's making $20+ million a year. It's a win-win-win.
If you buy in, that's the thing. If you buy into it, it allows a lot for you, I think. Brendon, should we hit a couple? We said a ton about the Nuggets. They're very deserving champions. Can't wait to see them next year. Can't wait to get any Jokic summer content. Just very excited for that.
He's going to disappear like Daniel Day-Lewis. He's gone. He's out.
I hope he wears his insane fits as Daniel Day-Lewis wears in retirement. That's all I got to say about that. They both wear tracksuits, so that could work. Perfect. But any final Miami Heat thoughts?
I mean, we have to talk about Jimmy, I think.
I wanted to start positively and just say they made the NBA Finals as a team that were in the play-in and lost their first play-in game. That is an accomplishment for a team that, like, talent-wise and all that stuff, like, isn't as good as making the finals. Like, they were not the most talented team in the East. I don't know, like, what you even can, like, regular season-wise, like, what you can expect from them next year, barring, like, there's roster changes that need to be made to kind of get them there again. But this organization has now made 2 finals in 4 years, and they've kind of, and, like, this year, again, we're in the play-in seed, and we're this close to losing to the Bulls before they went on this run. And, yes, Jimmy kind of flamed out at the end. He had that bad turnover that kind of sealed the title for Denver. But a really great playoff run that I think is going to get a little bit lost to history now. And it is an accomplishment for them to make the finals as a play-in team and prove something about what Miami is. I think there is something to that, even if, obviously, it's over now.
How do you think that Tyler Hero felt being a mental chess piece, like just a pawn in Eric Spoelstra's game of, like, he's active, Michael Malone, like, take that, and then not playing?
He's pulling up the iPhone, opening up Zillow, and is like, I could get a really nice house in Portland.
Yeah. Maybe roommates with Bam. No, they both wouldn't be able to go.
No,
too big of a salary.
Dame also is like, he's name checked at Bam. That's
I feel that, but Damian Lillard should be walked through some recent NBA trades and shown kind of what the value tends to be, because Tyler Hero and like a future pick's kind of not getting it done. But that is a conversation for maybe Thursday's episode.
Next week we do have a Blazers guest book that we're excited about.
So no, I think the Heat thing, like, they shot 34% from the field. The guys who were doing it for them, just you can't expect that for 20 playoff games. It's just not sustainable, especially when your best player is not even creating good shots for those guys anymore. If they're having to just do it by themselves, it's not going to happen. I thought Bam played fine, honestly. I thought he was pretty aggressive tonight and actually went through Jokic in ways that, Heat fans are always imploring him to do. Jimmy had that burst. He had 11 free throw attempts, which is kind of what we were asking for. He was driving and kicking, but that's just not going to be enough to beat the Nuggets. No, I think what this series showed is, imagine what this team could be if they do get that superstar. Like, if I'm Pat Riley, I'm looking at this and saying, like, Jimmy wants to be here. we have some assets. Like, imagine what we could be if we had the next guy who wants out, the next superstar, whatever player that ends up being. Like, this should make them more aggressive to go get that. They did not really seem to pursue Kevin Durant. I don't know if he ever would have wanted to go there. They lost out in the Mitchell sweepstakes if they were ever really in it. But, like, I would be looking at that and being like, and we still made the finals. So we have to, like, be more aggressive even than we already have been. And I think that will be their lesson.
I think, Brendon, that transitions us to a little exercise we're going to do looking at big picture and parity. I think I want to run through the teams that we think should think that they could make a run to the finals next year. That's what I want to do with this exercise. But I want to tell everyone real quick about our friends at Homage. Founded in 2007, Homage is an ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company that uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. They have a ton of great shirts that are NFL, NBA, MLB, Nickelodeon, and WB, and hundreds of other unique and pop culture designs, including the national parks. Brendon has a great Grand Canyon shirt to pay homage to Arizona. They're not just another fan t-shirt company. They craft the softest, most nostalgic clothing for sports fans, pop culture aficionados, and everybody in between. I am right now wearing a Jimmy Butler t-shirt. I'm, feeling some nostalgia for the Jimmy Butler that we saw against the Milwaukee Bucks is where I'm at. So check out. We have a link below. If you go click it, you buy something from our friends at Homage. Some of the money is going to come back to the Just Basketball Show. Go click that. Buy something cool for yourself or a loved one, friend, whatever. Do some support the
Father's
show.
Day.
Click that link. Father's Day.
Dad.
Yeah, did you forget to buy a gift for your dad? Go buy him an Homage shirt. They have a ton of great NBA ones. Dad. Yeah. And if you want to get in the WNBA, they have every team logo on a shirt, and you could just pick a team, pick the best Homage t-shirt, and that's the team you're going to support in the W. It seems like a foolproof way to do it, in my opinion. Brendon, let's go through these teams and look at who we think should look at this offseason, think about next year, and think, yeah, we could talk ourselves into getting to the finals.
Can I give some stats about how we got to here first?
Yeah.
So
yes.
Okay. This is actually pretty crazy when I went back in history. The NBA had repeat finals teams, so that means at least one team repeated every single year from 1982 to 1998. Craziness. Then again from 2000 to 2003, then 2004 to 2005, 2008 to 2010, and then a big one because of LeBron and the Warriors from 2011 to 2019. But now, no repeat finals team since the 2018-19 Warriors. And then there were also 3 occasions of repeat finals matchups, like the same exact teams, 97-98 with Bulls Jazz, 2013-14 with Spurs Heat, and then 15-18 with Cavs Warriors. No repeat matchup since 2018. So that's part of why I asked you the Nuggets question. That was part of the parity conversation that I wanted to have is, would we be talking about an actual age of parity if not for Jamal Murray tearing his ACL and Michael Porter's body being put together crazily by the basketball gods? And I think we're not sure, but either way, we're basically now we have Warriors, Lakers, Bucks, Warriors, Nuggets now as the past 5 champions with a bunch of different matchups thrown in there. And I don't feel like this, even if we both agree the Nuggets are going to be right there, I definitely don't feel like this is something where pencil in the Nuggets for the finals. Definitely don't think the Heat are any sort of lock. So it's right back to it.
I agree. And I think this offseason, the upheaval I think we're going to see in some of the movement we're going to see, I think is going to reshape some of what we're going to talk about and reshape some of this discussion. I think we're going to see some teams try to take big steps forward. I think we're going to see some teams take some moderate steps back. That wouldn't surprise me if we feel differently about some of these teams. Do you want to do West or East first?
Let's do East first.
All right. Start from 15 up. This is from last year's standings. We'll knock off a bunch of no's here, I think. Pistons, no. Hornets, no. Magic, no. Wizards, no. Pacers, no. Bulls, no. Do they hang a banner that's almost beat the Heat?
They should.
Yeah. Raptors, no. We'll talk about the Raptors again a little bit, though, so keep them percolating in your mind. The Heat, I feel like I should say, we have to just kind of by default that they've made 2 finals in 4 years. Say, think the Heat could do this again especially if they go get a star.
Yeah, the Heat have to be in there because
yeah.
They just did it, and so we know they can do it if there's the right set of circumstances with their type of talent. But also, I think that this summer is going to be a big one for them, so you can't rule it out.
Atlanta Hawks.
I think so. I mean, they were in the conference finals 2 years ago, and they have talent. I mean, if you're talking about, could I potentially draw up a world in which it happens? Sure. I mean, Quinn Snyder's going to be in his first year as head coach. There's always the potential that Trey figures it out. I mean, if I were to tell you that they had a similar track through like Miami just did, I don't think it would be the most insane thing. I mean, again, it just happened to them 2 years ago, and I think their talent might even be better now.
The Trey, at the point of attack. Yeah, the better coach thing would be what I feel best about it. And I think we're finally going to get a John Collins trade this summer. You would think, hopefully for John Collins.
Yeah, hopefully
wonder what
for
Zillow.
John Collins.
Wonder what his Zillow search looks like.
I can show him around
honestly.
Phoenix. I think there's a real nice team he could play for. If he needs a tour of Scottsdale, North Phoenix, lots of good homes, lots of really big properties. We're running out of water, but doesn't have to worry about that for a while. It's no big deal.
Running out of water seems like a real problem. I'll give you a final verdict on Atlanta. I'm just a Trey skeptic.
I mean, me too. When we do our season preview stuff in 3 months, I'm not going to be sitting here saying my pick from the East is the Hawks, but it's just it could happen.
Yeah, actually, what Brendon just said was Atlanta Hawks ink them in as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Put money on it and tell me that how much I owe you if and when it doesn't cash.
Yeah, go nuke the Atlanta Hawks on BetMGM is what Brendon said. All right, the Nets. I'm going to say no.
No. Don't have the star
power.
The
New York Knicks. No. And we'll see if they do anything weird and maybe take a step back. I'm really curious to see what they do. I'm totally kind of unsure about what's going on there. The New York Knicks. I'm going to say no.
See, I'm going to say yes for kind of the same reason as the Heat, which is they're going to be a team in the mix if there's superstars available. So if you're telling me they have a chance at Joel Embiid or something, then of course they have a shot at the title.
Sure. I would be more convinced of this if they make a kind of aggressive star trade this summer to kind of give someone to be with Brunson has a little more juice.
Yeah, they're not getting there without another superstar, but they could get one.
Yeah. The team they punked in the first round that didn't need Kevin Love at all, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, I think Cavs, Sixers, Celtics, and Bucks, the top 4 in the East this year are all obviously right there. I mean,
yes.
They easily could have won it this year. I mean,
And look, all these teams do have offseason questions. We should note that. We're going to cover that all here. But the Cavs, do they make any moves with Jared Allen? How do they upgrade their team without a lot of assets? The Sixers, James Harden.
Their second best player on the team in 3 weeks.
Right. The Boston Celtics, what happens with Jaylen Brown? Although Boston has made some really nice additions to the coaching staff, the Sam Cassell and Charles Lee hires are very good business for Boston. I don't know why I did that. I did hang out with an Italian.
There's some Italians in the north side of Boston.
Yeah, but I feel like I did that in because of who I was with on Saturday, who had a great day for himself. The Milwaukee Bucks, what happens with Chris Middleton? There's big questions there. So in the East, I'll say the Hawks, yes. We have Miami, Atlanta, the Knicks, the Cavs, the 76ers, the Celtics, and the Bucks. All can talk themselves into making a finals run for next year. 7 teams.
And the Hawks, that would be their first championship. So that would be another first-timer.
Yes. Let's go to the West. Spurs, no. I'm going to say Rockets, no, even if they get James Harden.
I mean, they had a prime MVP James Harden, and they didn't win a championship, so I think that's a safe bet. Portland, no. Utah, no. Dallas. Do you have
Dallas
an hour?
needs
How
a
long can you stay awake for this show? Do you have an hour to talk through Dallas?
Brendon, I took an ashwagandha gummy before we started recording, and I do not have an hour to talk about the Dallas Mavericks.
We'll have to do it
but here's the thing: I would be a no on them. I think the era that I think there's a different NBA era where a Luka Doncic team where they just have enough good role players and whatnot they could get to the finals that way. Like I think the template is like the first finals LeBron ever made with the Cavs when they lost to the Spurs in 4. That is like that model of getting there with how good the talent is in the league now. I think that is impossible to do now. So unless the roster for them changes in a way that actually gives him like some real talent and all that stuff, I'm gonna go no.
Okay.
Despite that, Luka is that good.
I think the only path for the Mavericks to win the finals next year is actually to become even more top heavy, to re-sign Kyrie and make another trade. So
yeah, I agree,
and
but
I just think that the barrier to doing that is actually just probably too high. So they have one of the top 10 players in the NBA, so it's just sort of hard to say there's no possible way. They might have 2 All-NBA players on their team. Like it's sort of so. I'll say yes for this purpose, kind of like the Hawks.
Okay. You
can get the final verdict on this one. I got my Hawks thing. You can
okay.
You can go no.
We're going no on Dallas. I'm being a hater. I'm just like inherently just unsure of if that's like a serious organization sometimes. The Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm gonna say no, but boy, ask me a year from now.
Once the rise of Chet has come and gone.
Yeah, that's going to be Brennan's propaganda slant for next season. Can already feel it, and I can feel it coming.
I'm moving to Oklahoma City. Did I not tell you?
Oh, good for you!
I bought a house. We're moving next week. Just getting there early. I know the season doesn't start for like 3-4 months, but just want to make sure we're in the area.
That means I do need to send you Boomtown so you can read that and just further get obsessed. I need like Boomtown 2.0 with like Chet chapters from
shorter flight to Cleveland from there too. So win-win.
And you get the haunted hotel.
Perfect.
Great. Hope you like highways and steakhouses.
I don't think I would like Oklahoma, but we'll see. I'm about to experience it either way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. New Orleans Pelicans. I'm gonna say no.
Okay, this one is a yes.
Okay, here's the thing.
I need to see like five months ago. Now we're like not even that far gone from
Brendon. And then what happened? How many games did Zion Williamson play at the end of the season?
Okay, but we're saying ifs. I mean, at the beginning of this season, I got plus 2,000 odds on the Nuggets winning the championship this year, and then by the end of the season, it felt like no brainer. So if you're saying could things fall into line, then you got to say yes because they have the talent to do it. They already proved that.
Zion played 29 games last season, my guy.
And Jamal Murray played 0 last year, and look where he is now. I know it's different.
Zion
That's just like unfair.
Yes.
I'm comparing like the most injured player in the league to one guy who had one ACL injury.
And one guy who we like know is like about that life of like really getting back, and one guy who I'm like I don't really know what's going on there right now. But
do you have an hour for that one too?
That's the After Dark Patreon pod is yeah.
All right, I think the top 7. So Minnesota, what do we think?
Well, I'm gonna go no.
I'm gonna go no as well. So and then from there, I think the top 7 teams you could convince me all of them. Memphis question mark obviously. Maybe Adam Silver will drop his tweet soon. But
he should do it at like 3 He should do it like 3 a.m.
And it should just come from like his personal IG, not even like a press release from the league. He made it all about himself, TikTok. So you might as well. He's cracking jokes with Dan Patrick and all that. Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, Phoenix, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Lakers. I think all could easily win it. The West was wide open this year, and it will be again next year.
All right, so I'll give you the Pelicans,
and I'll remind you the Suns. It would be a first-time championship. So I was feeling a little misty watching the Nuggets get that because I don't know if you heard, but there was a series 2 years ago where the Suns were prominently involved and had a chance to get one, and I was there and they didn't. So it was a little sad.
That's true. So 8 teams in the West is what we're saying.
Yeah,
that's 15 teams overall. That's half the league.
Mm-hmm. Parity.
Now, will we have tiers in that 15? Yeah, but I don't think that's like unreasonable. The Hawks are just in there. Just all birds. Bunch of birds.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I do feel like we're going to continue to talk about all this, but like we haven't even mentioned the CBA, which is just going to enforce action. Teams are going to have to make moves this offseason just to figure out salary stuff. So If you're projecting forward, I think talent being even more spread out is possible.
Speaking of a team that could disperse some talent around the league, including one player who just opted out, let's talk about the Toronto Raptors. They just hired a head coach. They could have up to $20 million in cap space. Probably not really a cap space team because they have Jakob Poeltl as a free agent. Lots of questions here. The news hook of this, that Fred VanVleet is going to go into direct free agency, declined his player option. Brendon, they're a team that they aren't quite totally stuck, and I think, they hired Darko Rajakovic as their head coach, who's a Grizzlies assistant. It seems like they are really bringing in someone who's going to develop young players, and like that's part of the sales pitch they are making here. He is the last head coaching hire, by the way, so all the coaches are filled now. It seems like they are going to try. It doesn't seem like as of right now they're going to go full rebuild. Where I want to start with this is the Fred VanVleet news. Brendon, I think if I'm Toronto, I'm thanking him for his service, and I'm trying to sign and trade him if I can. I think he's been obviously great for them, helped them win a title. Him and Siakam are their big success stories of development and of guys that came out of nowhere in a lot of ways. But he is someone that I think seems to want something a little bit different, and that kind of feels like it's been in the water a little bit. And I think if I'm them, I want to try to turn the leaf over a little bit more to Scottie as a playmaker, develop him in that way, and it's time to, I think, start ushering in a different era of Toronto. I don't think it's going to be, it doesn't seem like it's going to be the full retool, which I actually might advocate for around Scottie if I were them, but losing Fred will be a change for them, and I think it is ultimately the right move, especially if you can sign him, trade him. I think you should do it.
I think they just have too much for it to be a full reset. Like, you would just have to be so intentional. You'd have to be Danny Ainge with the Jazz to just dismantle this team. And even then, Danny Ainge ended up with too much stuff to be bad. So it's just too hard to do that, and I think there's no real need to. Would it be nice to get another high draft pick? Yeah, but that's my question for you is, and I have some Fred VanVleet trades, but do you think Scottie Barnes is good enough to be treated as the franchise cornerstone that you're resetting your team around?
Year one, I would have said yes. I don't think he should have won Rookie of the Year, but he was up there with Cade and with Mobley for Rookie of the Year. Last year, I think he took a little bit of a step back. He wasn't as efficient as a field goal shooter. His threes, which weren't good in year one, dipped below 30%. 2-point percentage dropped from 54 to 50%. Some of that could have just been Toronto stuff. His assists did go up, so it's not like it was a full loss, but I didn't think he was the same. I think he kind of had either took a step back or just kind of stayed the same.
Yeah.
Plateaued. I don't know if he's going to be your A-plus one guy on your best team. Do I think he could be kind of an interesting piece of a great team? Yeah, I do. But do I think he's... I'd be looking at him as your 2 to your 1, I think, if you're in an optimal situation. I don't think scoring-wise it feels like he might have the chops to do some of that. And the mechanism is kind of an interesting lack of that. And if he's his size and is the Swiss Army knife, can play the 5, do all this stuff, there's a ton that I think you should love. But I think some of the scoring stuff at his size gets a little bit trickier. And if the 3-point shot doesn't come, it's not like you can just be like, oh, he's 7 foot, we can play him at the Exactly. It gets a little trickier unless you have the shooting component with him.
If you're not a center in the NBA and you're not early career LeBron James level of driving finisher type, and even that, I'm not sure what that looks like in the modern NBA. You're just limited. So I agree with you. I don't think that they should be thinking about him that way. So I guess that could be a thing to advocate for getting bad again, at least for 1 year. But with VanVleet, I think I agree. I just don't think that he's not even really that big of a floor raiser, in my opinion. I mean, he can shoot. That's helpful. He's a pretty good point of attack defender. He can handle the ball capably. He knows the organization and everything else. But like, I don't even think that he's somebody that keeps you solid. I think he's just sort of a luxury. And on a good team, he could be more than that. So I have 2 trades.
Hit me.
First of all, I think the Jalen Brunson range for the contract is probably reasonable. 4 years, $104 million.
Yeah.
Something around there. I mean, maybe a little less, but that's probably what he'd be asking for. So this is the first one is one we talked about back at the deadline, if you remember, to the Orlando Magic for Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs, and the 11th pick. Is that too much? Suggs and a top lottery pick?
I think that's too much because it's a sign and trade. So if you did like Suggs and like a future protected first, I would do it.
They have
Orlando has just like a lot of picks.
Yeah, and look, this is minutia, but Gary Harris is somebody that a lot of contenders should be trying to get. So Toronto could potentially flip him. All right, and then the other one I had for Van Vliet is 2 Phoenix with Otto Porter and a protected first for DeAndre Ayton. So in this case, they're stacking stuff up to get to a bigger deal to get Ayton. The crazy thing about this whole Toronto offseason, which we can probably just hit now because it relates to this, is why on God's green earth did they trade for Jakob Poeltl at the deadline?
So
a first-round pick.
I don't understand this in retrospect. And like he's reportedly like looking for like $20 million. I think that's crazy for what he is. I think he's a fine center, but I think like we live in this league where like I would not be paying a guy what he is to make $20 million. I wouldn't. I don't think he's a $20 million a year guy. Like if like
nobody
I think
that's
Jared
as
Allen,
good as him makes $20 million.
Like Jared Allen is like better than him, and even like someone like him at $20 million at times feels like you could like would you be better spending the money elsewhere? And like Jared Allen, despite the playoff stuff, is like a highly competent center with like some pretty good skills, but he's not like overwhelmingly elite at one thing. Poeltl is like a mid-level exception like type of guy that I would use on my center. I get that they like him. I get they wanted size. Maybe this was like a Nick Nurse thing behind the scenes. Like I don't fully know. Maybe like he really just like I need a big, and I get wanting some stability at that position. But they overpaid. Like you could have just got him in free agency, and your last season would have changed him. Maybe your draft position would be slightly better. Old-fashioned
contract. I mean, they don't have cap space, so I guess that would be the one thing. They wouldn't have been able to go get him in free agency necessarily, but sign and trades, there's all sorts of things you could do. It just felt really old-fashioned, the types of trades we used to see, a first-round pick for an expiring player to go help you kind of make like a push for the 5 seed and whatnot like that. That's like the NBA in like the mid-2000s. Like that just stuff doesn't happen. I think teams are smarter than that, and in this case they weren't. So the Ayton thing is related to this, but what's your walkaway number for Poeltl? So I had Valanciunas makes 13, or I think Steven Adams makes 13. Valanciunas makes 16, and Yusuf Nurkic makes 18 million. Yusuf Nurkic's contract is one of the worst in basketball, so I don't know if that's a good comparison, but they're similar players.
It's. I would rather have Steven Adams than Jakob Poeltl, so 13.
Okay, yeah. So basically the mid-level, like you said.
Yeah,
I just don't know who else is giving. What other cap space team is giving Poeltl money? That's the other thing.
Maybe the Pistons because they just love centers. Maybe Troy Weaver's like another center.
Great. We'll give Mason Plumlee another contract, and we'll bring back Poeltl too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have Marvin Bagley.
Yeah, making $13 million also.
Yeah. So like, I bet to answer your question, like I think like a good team should like that has their mid level should be like call him and offer it to him. But that's about as high as I think he's reasonably going to get. I don't think there's like cap space teams like really calling out for him.
So
and like that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just for hit like he wasn't going to get $20 million. Like that just wasn't going to happen.
Players like him, he wasn't even like playing 30 minutes a game for the Spurs. You know, that he's not a high minutes player. He can't shoot free throws. He doesn't do much on offense. It's just not really going to happen. So yeah, all right, let's say that they cap it at 13. That's still a manageable number where I suppose he's tradable. You could keep him as a backup maybe. I don't really know. But do you like the deal for the Suns or the Suns deal for the Raptors to get
Why
Ayton?
are they trading? Why would you trade for DeAndre Ayton and pay him that much money is like my other question. I've
been linked to him in the past, and I think he's a little bit more. He fits a little bit more of their overall roster construction and playing style better than any of the other centers, including Poeltl, who they've had. That would be the case for it.
Yeah, it's just I'm a little.
And you could lose Van Vliet for nothing otherwise. So it's like
that's
you're
true. That's true.
That.
I am just a Ayton skeptic, and being on the hook for his contract with where you're at feels a little dicey to me. Is what I would say. I think if you're sure that you could rejuvenate Ayton, then sure. But I think otherwise, I'm a little like why did we do this? Even if it's just like I would rather just lose him for nothing than take on a contract that is that huge. Unless you're really, really sure and believe in him.
Is there another Van Vliet deal you like, or team?
No,
least?
the Orlando one is the one that makes the most sense to me.
Okay, we have more trades to get to, so let's go to Pascal Siakam.
So here's the Siakam thing for me, Brendon, is one of my big mysteries. It did not make my... So on Thursday, or Friday, depending when the episode was out, we're going to have 10 people that are going to decide the NBA offseason. Could be GMs, could be team owners, could be players. Siakam did not make my list for this, but he was on my long list. Mm-hmm. Here's why. Siakam is someone that I could see a world where it makes sense for Toronto to trade him. I could see a world where they decide, hey, you've been great for us, but you're 29, you're in the last year of your contract, time to go. I also think it seems like, if you read it, they're not trying to do a full teardown. He would be the one. He's the best player. He's a top, 15 to 20 player. He's also going to command a ton of money on his next deal. If you're saying we don't want to take a massive back, we want to be ready to go in a year, then you just re-sign him and you don't think about it. But he is the one where it's like if you wanted to get real value back in a trade, because he has the 1 year left, the team could have to re-sign him, get his bird rights. That's the one where I think you could extrapolate a lot of value out to retool for yourself in a way that an OG and Anunoby trade would not. And I wonder if they consider that at all. They've postured no, but I wonder if that is somewhere in the ether out there a little bit.
So I guess one of the other cases to keep him would be he was maybe the guy more than anyone else who didn't seem to get along with Nick Nurse. So there's a little bit of let's maybe see one season of those guys apart. I don't know if I think that's enough of a reason to keep him, but that's there. To me, the biggest reason to trade him is I think he's the guy on this roster, maybe more than anyone, who overlaps with Scottie too much. Mm-hmm. I feel like what you want Barnes to be is somewhat of a version of what Siakam already is. I know they're not the same exact player, but they would occupy similar spots on the court, elbow playmaking, high post stuff, operating as the roller in a pick and roll with whatever guards you end up having this year. And so you kind of want Scottie to slide into that. I don't think that them on the court together is great. I looked it up around the deadline, and they were a negative on the court together, I think, at that time. So I think I would agree with you that they should trade him. I have 3 trades. All the rest of the trades for the whole episode are pretty much in the West. I don't know why. It just is how it played out. All right, to the Mavericks. This is my favorite one. I've been wanting them to do this since the deadline. To Dallas for Bertans, Kleba, Josh Green, and Jaden Hardy, and a 2029 top 4 protected first. So that's a smaller version of the Donovan trade because he only has 1 year left.
Would you I know how the salad would work, but I would almost want to be can I give up 1 more first and keep Josh Green?
Yeah, that would probably be part of the negotiation.
That's where I would. But I like that destination for him quite a bit.
I just think he's a really nice kind of pick and pop guy with Luka and Kyrie.
And could make Luka diversify in a way that he probably needs to.
And he can play with another big. Siakam can play with another big because he can space and he can play make. So you could still reinforce the defense a little bit and still have Siakam on the court. He doesn't have to play center. To Portland for Simons, Nurkic, and the 3rd pick, Scoot, basically.
I would do that if I'm them, just because I think Scoot would fill the Van Vliet hole and really turbocharge kind of some of the ball handling stuff there. I wouldn't hate that if I'm them.
Do you think and we'll talk about the Blazers more next week, but do you think the Blazers can do better than Siakam with that? That's their package. There's really no other varieties involved. They don't have a lot to deal. I think that's what's kind of getting lost with Portland. So Can they do better than Siakam? with that package.
Do you think Mikal Bridges is better than Siakam?
I would probably call them somewhat equivalent right now. I think Siakam's like a couple years older, and Bridges is on a much better contract. So I think like trade value wise, Bridges probably has a little bit higher trade value. But in terms of like what's going to make Dame feel like they can win a championship, I mean, he's pals with Mikal, so that affects it. But I don't. Maybe it makes Dame happy. I do not think Mikal Bridges is ready to be the number 2 on a championship team, in my informed opinion.
Yeah, someone who knows him better than anyone I know personally. You're probably right. Yeah, I would tend to agree. Siakam would like also just there's a defensive part of Siakam, and I think in the right situation maybe gets unlocked in a different way again. That kind of would be a throwback to how he really came on the scene. That I think would be kind of interesting to see if he could tap into a version of that again if he had to do less on offense in a different kind of structure on offense as well.
All right, so last one for Siakam. To the Warriors for Jordan Poole, Gary Payton, and a 2027 top 4 protected first. So this is if Draymond leaves or if they do a separate trade involving Draymond, because Siakam and Draymond are similar players.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of like he's our younger Draymond replacement for the future type of trade.
I would say no to that if I'm Toronto because I don't really want to be in the Jordan Poole business. If I'm them, Brendon, I'm being very picky about who I'm being very picky this summer. Not too picky, but I think they should be particular about the kind of business they do. I think they're in a spot where what they do this summer is going to kind of have a very direct impact over what the next 24 months looks like. And I think they have to kind of keep some of that in mind when they're doing some of these trades. Even if they get assets back, I think they got to be very, very particular here.
I also think Golden State has to give up more than what I put in there. That's a way smaller package than the other ones, as I'm saying. It's probably 2 picks. And yeah, I agree. I don't love that one. I've always kind of liked it just because, again, Siakam and Draymond are similar. So I just like the idea of kind of him filling that big playmaker role. But it's probably not worth blowing up your team for Pascal Siakam. So getting rid of Poole and Draymond and all this other stuff just to get him in the door is probably not really necessary. Which one did you like the best?
Dallas one.
Me too. I really like that. I think it would be worth, like I said a minute ago when we were talking about finals teams, I think that Siakam as a third guy on that particular team would be worth having him be sort of your all-in move. Like if they make that trade, they really have nothing else to deal. You have Kyrie, Luka, and Siakam, and then some veteran role players, not even like young role players. You still have the number 10 pick this year to get somebody, but that's kind of your team. I think it's worth it, though. I think they fit well enough.
The other part of this, Brendon, is I think if you could get the 3rd pick, I would also want to do that just because I think someone like Scoot, or if Brandon Miller's there, or whatever, maybe they go way off the board and take a Thompson twin or whatever. Maybe they do something weird in that spot. Who knows? The Raptors can be...
Yeah.
He might. If you look at this roster, this is a roster that I think needs an injection of youth alongside Scotty. OG is going to be 26. Mm-hmm. Scotty is going to be 20. He's 21 right now. Okay, Precious is extension eligible. I don't know if I love him as super much, but you could extend him at a decent number, and I would be like, sure, that's fine. But he's 23. Like you have guys that are kind of in that range, but then you have Boucher is 30. Malachi Flynn's already 25.
I don't understand how Chris Boucher is 30. It doesn't make any sense. I feel like I learned his name 2 years ago.
Right. It's bizarre. You might lose Gary Trent this summer as well. He's 24. Why? Joe Wisekamp, I don't think he's a big part of your future plans. I don't think Banton was good last year, but he's 23 already. You need, I think, a real injection of youth to kind of give yourself to get someone more in Scotty's age bracket. And that you also just feel good about. Maybe Koloko kind of develops. He's 22. I know there was some hope for him last year, but maybe he looks better this year. Upcoming season, I think if you could get him in a position to take a swing on someone at the top of the draft, I think it would do them a lot of good to get another pick in that range. The Scotty pick was a blessing for that franchise to get in that spot and be able to draft someone like Scotty that they otherwise would not have been able to get with where they're at.
Especially having lived in Tampa, Florida for a year. It's a wonderful reward.
Tough. I think I think a world where they could get like a Scoot, I think would do them a lot of good if they could find a way to finagle that with Portland. But I am more of the opinion, Brendan, that they should probably just go pretty studs. Like, I would be more interested in trading Siakam than it would be OG, just because I think you should get more value back for Siakam. They were very unrealistic, in my opinion, with what they were looking for with OG last year. I think unreasonably, like, looking for a ton. OG's, like, fine. He is a good player, but, like, he's not a superstar, and he wants this bigger role. But maybe if you do reshuffle the deck here and you trade away Siakam to Dallas or whatever, maybe maybe you extend OG. You could still trade him again at some point, but he gets the chance to maybe expand his game a little bit and see if there's actually anything on that bone, which is the bone that he has like always kind of reportedly wanted to chew on.
I think Toronto was probably the most bummed out by Mikal Bridges breaking out last year because they're like, damn it, we don't have the best young wing to trade like we thought we did anymore. Now Mikal's the guy. All right, you covered the Precious stuff. I agree. Do it if you want to. They have the 13th pick. Do we have time to rapid fire through OG trades?
Yeah.
All right. Do you think the Grizzlies still pursue him? Because they were like the number one team, but now this jaw thing that Adam Silver is going to, do a Tumblr post about in a little bit is looming.
Tumblr post. He's gonna have that like guy that the NBA has that does like trick shots and then like for the NBA, like he's like a social media influencer. Mm-hmm. He's just gonna like make a shot and that's how they're gonna announce it.
And then it's gonna be like a backdrop that appears where it's like the statement on a piece of paper or something. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it's gonna be something really fucking stupid. I think OG trades are tricky in the sense that, like, I think he is someone that should. I don't know if he is like the piece on top to be like fixture defense. I think he like raises the floor. I don't think he's like a cherry on top of an already good defense, if that makes sense. So if I'm Memphis, I probably do it because I think this is a real need, and I think he could play the 4 next to Triple J when Triple J is at the 5. Mm-hmm. The question is, like, how many picks do you want to give up?
Yeah, I mean,
if I'm Memphis, I'm probably still just saying I'm going in because, like, even if I think the jaw extensions or suspensions are going to be a little hefty. His extension's going to be hefty as well.
But you still can't maybe that plays a part in this. Next year's just a wash. Like, you can't just be like, whatever.
Exactly. No, exactly where I'm going. You're going to get him back, and you're going to want to go for it, especially if the talent is as good as you think it is. You're going to be in the hunt in the West anyway.
Yeah, they've played well without him in the past. It's like I think people have gotten a little overboard with the jaw thing. Like, it's just going to destroy the future and present of the Memphis Grizzlies, and it's like it's its own thing. It's not going to be easy for them to deal with, but they also still have one of the most promising cores in the NBA.
Bingo.
So yeah,
would you if you're Memphis?
I would definitely do it if I'm Memphis. I think that he is. I would look, to return to the Nuggets. I would look at what Aaron Gordon just did in these playoffs and feel pretty excited about acquiring somebody like OG Anunoby. I think especially if my future is a little more small ball with Jaren at the 5, which he showed himself to be able to do pretty well in this last season. I don't think OG's quite as high IQ of a player as somebody like Aaron Gordon, but I think functional strength is just a really big thing. If you could get OG to become a little bit more of a rebounder, the shooting is there, which is huge. He's just going to be more playable than a lot of other guys like him because he's shot, above league average from deep for 4 years now. I mean, like on a high volume, like he is a legit shooter. So that's what you want. I think the question with OG in general is just how serious is his desire to be more on offense and how much is that going to get in the way if he can't? Is going to a place where he can win and be appreciated and paid more enough, or is it a situation where he has to have the ball in his hands and that's his number one goal? I kind of don't think it's that because very few players allow that to just wreck their careers. We don't really know because he's not that talkative. He's not the type of leaker that, makes that stuff known. So we'll see. But on Memphis, he wouldn't be that. So that would be the one thing holding me back. I didn't do a Memphis package just because I wasn't really sure where things would land. But that's interesting. All right, to the Pelicans is my second one for Larry Nance, Herb Jones, and 2 firsts. I kind of used the template of what the deadline stuff was as the where their offers were going to be, or at least what the Raptors were going to demand. So it's probably not 2 good firsts, but two firsts of some kind, Herb Jones and Larry Nance.
I would do it if I'm the Pelicans. I really like Larry Nance as like a role guy. I think they could then Toronto could then flip him for more if they really wanted to. You have to rehabilitate Herb's offense a little bit, but you get a better offensive player, similar defensive player. Yeah, I would do that if I'm Toronto. I'd feel good about him and Ingram as a duo as well, I think.
Yeah, that feels like a lot, but I think
they have a lot to trade, though, is the thing.
And I just feel like the Raptors are operating from a point of strength. Hey, do you want the most valuable thing in the league? We have one of them. You know what I mean?
How about the Thunder trade for OG?
They have Jalen Williams. Isn't that OG? Part two?
That's
I mean, they're kind of the same exact player.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I was going to be like Lou Dort and some picks.
Yeah.
You and OG moving to OKC.
So I have Dallas for Bullock, Green, and 2 firsts.
And
then I have
prefer the Toronto one.
For the Pelicans
New
one.
Orleans one.
And then the last one, which is back to the Eastern Conference for this, I'm going to pull back on this one. Never mind. I was going to do a Tyrese Maxey thing, but I think Maxey's just better. So I was going back and forth. I'm like, could the Raptors give up something? I'm just like, I don't think it's realistic. But I liked the idea of giving the Sixers an actual wing defender if they could find a way to get one. But
yeah, it's like a team like Cleveland would call if they could, but they can't because like they don't have picks. But it's like you could be like, do you want Jared Allen instead of Jakob Poeltl and some picks? But they don't have the picks. Like the Knicks already have Josh Hart, who's not as good, but they can just resign and not have to give up picks for. Mm-hmm. They're gonna get a team that's I think kind of desperate. I think is where this ends up, and that could be New Orleans, that could be Dallas. Like I think it's going to be a team that feels like it has to do something aggressive and go get wing help.
The Sixers could do Melton, Tucker, and 2 firsts.
I don't know if I would do that. You're really chipping into your depth even more, and you're already kind of like a thin team. The spicy one in my head, Brendon, was would you consider some sort of trade that centered on MPJ for OG if you're Denver?
No, I think as long as Michael Porter can continue to get right physically, I think his ceiling is still like way higher than where he's at right now.
And the offense, even though he didn't have a good finals, but the way he plays offense, I think fits with Jokic better than the way OG plays offense.
Yeah,
I think there's something to just the way he plays that really kind of like his freedom that he plays with. I think kind of fits in with what Jokic sets up for him, and that would take time for OG to adjust. But that was like a spicy one that I
also
I thought
Stan Kroenke is like as close to a godfather of Michael Porter Jr. as you can have. I don't know if you know that background, but like he's a big Mizzou booster, and so that's a big reason why they drafted Michael Porter, and that's a big reason why they gave him the max. Is that Stan Kroenke is like one of one with the University of Missouri and got to know their family and everything else. So. Don't know if Michael Porter Jr. is ever leaving the Denver Nuggets unless he asks out. Let's put it that way.
Okay, good for him.
Got a bag.
Get those checks. Get those checks.
World-class medical staff to fix his back. All good.
Yes. So, Brendon, let's end on this. I'm going to ask you a question. We'll end on that. You know, the Keontae George, like they have the 13th pick. That could be an interesting pick. They could go different directions. The 13th pick isn't changing your life. Do you feel like the Raptors are in a good spot?
No, but I think that they're in a good spot for what the Raptors want to be. They're never going to bottom out. I mean, they just never have done that. The only time they got bad is just because everybody sucked because it was miserable to be in Tampa. You know, that's just not in their blood. So I think having Scotty and I think having some flexibility to reset a little bit with these trades if they chose to, they're in a good spot. I wouldn't pick them in a who do you want to start a franchise with today type of draft situation, but I would pick them over a lot of other situations. And I do think Darko's going to be a good coach. I think he's one of those guys who has a combination of player development background, but he's also been a high-level assistant coach on winning teams. Like he was in Oklahoma City with Billy Donovan in the Russ and KD era. That's where he started. Then he went to Phoenix during their first season, and then he's been on Memphis as they've been a playoff team and kind of a young building group. So I think he's a good guy to do this. So they're in a fine spot. I don't think they're in the best spot of any, kind of resetting team in the league.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. I think you nailed that perfectly. But let's end there. This has been the Just Basketball Show for Tuesday, June 13th. Congratulations again to the Denver Nuggets, the NBA champs, the best team in the world with the best player in the world. I think we can just call Jokic the best player in the world now. Yes, Brendon, are you good with that?
I'm happy with that, yeah.
Yeah, best player alive right now. Has that belt. Can't wait to see all the pony content from Serbia this summer. Let him take Larry O'Brien to Serbia is all I ask. Adam Silver. But remember, go click our link below for our friends at Homage. Some of that money, if you buy something, will come back and support the show. Please do that. Remember to subscribe or follow us on your podcast platform of choice, 5 stars only. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell on YouTube as well. And by the way, Thursday's show is going to be 10 players, 10 people that define the NBA offseason. Brendon and I are going to come up. We have come up with independent lists. We don't know who we each pick, who each of us are going to pick. There's going to be some overlap. But we're going to get into the chaos of the NBA offseason starting on Thursday. There is no real break here on the Just Basketball Show or on that NBA calendar right now. We're diving right into the good stuff. Make sure you tune in for that. I'm Chris Manning. That's Brendon Kleen. I can't say enjoy the hoops because the hoops are gone, but hope you enjoyed the hoops this NBA season.